Ferrari might be the fastest car in 2024. In qualifying, as usual, the first quali of the year has just finished, masks off, and situation is pretty similar to the end of 2023, basically no surprises at all. But let's talk about it in order. Welcome to the Fastcast F1, short and informative breakdowns of F1 sessions. And before we even start, let's make a small track breakdown. Bahrain International Circuit, one of the most familiar tracks for all F1 teams and drivers. It hosts pre-season testing for recent years, and rightfully so, because the track itself is really balanced. A really good mix of low speed corners here, turn 1, turn 8, turn 10, medium speed corners, exit of turn 2, turn 4, turn 11, turns 13 and 14, some fast corners like section 5, 6, 7, and turn 12, and a good bunch of heavy straights. Yes, the balance is a bit shifted towards medium speed corners, but still the track is very balanced itself, just like Barcelona. And in some way it is even better for testing than circuit in Catalonia, because track itself is way more safe than Barcelona. Huge safety zones. For example, we didn't see any crashes during all 3 days of preseason testing and during first day of practice, despite some really good attempts to do so. In terms of racing, track is also really good. The most heavy braking zone is just before turn 1 with the best overtaking opportunity, but it is immediately paired with second DRS zone and also second heavy overtaking zone and a good overtaking opportunity. We've seen some phenomenal back-to-back fights, starting in turn 1, finishing in turn 4. Even turns 8 and 10 are also an overtaking opportunity. We've seen some brilliant overtaking by Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton just 1 year ago. Turn 11 is also a good overtaking opportunity with a solid braking zone, and even turn 14 can be used for overtaking. But drivers usually tend to ignore it and just leave the overtaking on the following straight with DRS zone. Also this year cars run really low, so expect to see a lot of bottoming on curbs throughout the race. We move on to the tires analysis. Pirelli have chosen 3 hardest compounds for this race as usual. The main reason for it is really high temperatures around Bahrain circuit and also the highest possible asphalt abrasion. The combination of these 2 factors really kills tires, so Pirelli has to choose the hardest compounds. So the race itself should be really informative in terms of how hards will perform, because we will not see them for a long time going into the season. Some new pretty interesting graphics from Pirelli. We see that the rear left is the most loaded tire and will be the limiting tire for the whole tire compound. And this is it for tires breakdown. Let's move on to the qualifying itself. Q1. Here you can see the final order of Q1, but to get the full picture of the session we need to analyze it from first attempt to the last attempt. And Q1 had a pretty unexpected start. 4 cars of Ferrari and Alpine going out on medium tires. To be honest, I don't really know why they have done it. This attempt looked completely useless. Moreover, this 4 cars has +1 used medium instead of a new medium going into the race. But we move on to the real first attempt, and oh my god, Verstappen is not on the top of a leaderboard. Also, Lewis quite surprisingly was just 12, and of course it's pretty sad to see Alpine at the very bottom of the leaderboard. Otherwise, no big surprises, and I felt kinda disappointed about it, because everything looked pretty familiar. Hülkenberg being faster than Magnussen, Albon being faster than Sargent, Alonso being faster than Stroll, and so on and so forth. Then Ferrari team forced Leclerc to make a second attempt. He was not so pleased and not so happy with it, and we see the final results of the final attempt. Disaster for Alpine F1 team, and they actually look pretty slow. The only good news for them is that the whole grid is really packed. Only 1 second from P1 to P2 20, so even a small improvement can bump them up straight into the midfield. Sargent once again made a small mistake when it mattered in the very last attempt in turn 10. Guan Yu Zhou's should easily get in Q2, but he made a big mistake in turn 12, but despite it lose only 1/1000 of a second to Valtteri Bottas. We move on to Q2, and on the right side of your screen you can see the first attempt of Q2. And from here on Red Bull started to show its true potential, 29.3. Max Verstappen making a mistake in the last corner still brings 0.4 of a second to his pole in last season, and it was the only attempt really needed for him. And as we move to the second attempt, we see Charles Leclerc actually scoring the fastest time of the whole session, 29.1. Already 0.6 faster than previous pole position, with 2 best sectors, and Ferrari is looking really strong in qualifying as usual. Now the dynamic in Mercedes changed for this session. Hamilton was actually faster than Russell on both attempts, Alonso is still gapping Lance Stroll. Nico Hülkenberg had a hell of a lap, 29.8, really overperforming his car, taking P6 and going into Q3. Otherwise, the whole grid looks really familiar, like nothing has changed from the previous year. Fernando had a small lockup in turn 1 and Kevin Magnussen was penalized for crossing track limits. But actually, at this specific case, I think that leaving the track was caused by this Red Bull, who was already pretty close to the racing line. Q3 first attempt was really close. Fernando Alonso made only 1 hot lap in this session, going in between first and second attempt. Really good decision considering that the track might be already overheated, because lap times actually fell off a little bit comparing to Q2. Here is Q2 and here is Q3. For these particular drivers, this first attempt should be on a used soft tires, but still we see the dynamic of track not improving from Q2 to Q3 and, in my opinion, actually getting a little bit worse. For this session, Russell really destroyed Hamilton in first and in second attempt. Piastri managed to score a good time only in a second attempt, and Hülkenberg couldn't really repeat his monstrous lap of Q2. Here we see results of a second attempt. Huge improvement from Max Verstappen. Everybody else improved a little bit, and Alonso with his only 1 hot lap failed on P6. Hamilton still failed to deliver, only P9 for him, and Nico Hülkenberg is covering up the top 10. But if we exclude Nico, we see only half a second difference between pole position and P9, which is pretty nice to see in modern F1. And moreover, only 0.3 of a second between P2 and P9. Now let's move on to race predictions. Unfortunately, it is the first race of the season, that's why we cannot really predict who will be strong in terms of race pace. However, considering that nothing really changed comparing to the end of 2023, we can easily predict that situation around race pace will also stay the same. But we can still draw some predictions. If we look in FP2, which is the closest practice session to actual race conditions, we see that some cars were trying to make a long racing stints, basically simulating the race pace, and we still see Red Bull of Max Verstappen being faster for the whole race simulation. Of course, we do not know the amount of sandbagging, but what we really know that Red Bull was sandbagging more than everybody else, so the real pace should be even faster than this. Otherwise, we still see the same picture, with Ferrari starting with a good pace and actually falling off to the end of the stint, Mercedes being pretty consistent from the very start of the stint to the very end of the stint, and Aston Martin also has a competitive race pace. So if we'll move to the actual grid, we may draw some predictions. Max Verstappen will skyrocket into the sunset, no one would be even able to get close. The only chance for Charles Leclerc or maybe George Russell is to overtake him at the start of the race, but considering the track being really easy to overtake, I bet that Max Verstappen will not find any problems regaining his P1 and still sailing off into the sunset. Now Sergio Perez, considering his huge gap in terms of race pace, also should be just as fast as everyone around him, and the whole group from P2 to P9 will move on, would exchange some laps, maybe we'll see some strategy variety, we actually may see even a 3-stop in a race, and considering all these facts, actually anyone from this group can take P2. And the third group will be formed starting with Nico Hülkenberg. He will definitely fall off from this group from the very beginning of the race. The only chance for him is actually to eat some places from the start and to block maybe Hamilton, maybe Oscar Piastri for several laps. Lance Stroll should really try to use his good starting skills and make 2 positions, because if he'll be able to do so, he might stick with this whole group. Otherwise we'll see a good fight at the very bottom of the point zone. Maybe Alpine could actually show some improvement, and maybe in terms of race pace the car will be better. So I bet that they will make some positions. And this is it. Thank you very much for your view. Leave a comment if you agree, if you disagree, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and see you soon.